I've spent over 20 years in the recruitment industry and I've learned a thing or two about interviewing. I've interviewed with and for hundreds of hiring managers and I've recruited thousands of people over those 2 decades. So let me give you the inside track and what I know about answering typical interview questions. Hi, I'm Bryn Keech from Leader Ruler and this is all about interviews and interview questions. Let's talk about the typical interview questions that you might be asked in a standard format interview, and I'll also give you my view on how I'd expect candidates to answer those questions. Now, there should typically be a structure to the interview. You don't know what that is, but the interviewer certainly should. It should be the same format for all of the candidates that they interview for that particular role, obviously with slight tweaks for different questions for each candidate because of different experiences. There are normally opening questions, role-specific questions, person-specific questions, closing questions, those sorts of things. So how would I typically open an interview? Now, after I've settled the candidate in and we've had small talk and we're ready to get going, typically I'd start with wanting to know what they know about the company that they're looking to join, the company that I'm working for. So I might ask them something like, can you tell me what you know about company X? And I'd expect them to be able to provide me with short but well-researched answers that shows me that they've done some homework on us as an organisation. And I hope that their answer sounds something like this. You're a global insurance intermediary with offices in the UK as well as owning companies in France and Germany. You specialise in car and motorbike insurance and you employ around about 4,000 people. Now, I'd be happy with that sort of answer. I'm not expecting the candidate to know everything, but I am expecting them to have identified and picked out key points about the company. I'd expect some further detail in other questions moving forward that show an interest in the company and not just interest in the role. I've had candidates before that have made no effort to find any details out or do any research. Why would a hiring manager be interested in someone that isn't interested in the company? And I've had candidates say things like, is it an insurance company? Or, I think you make cars. I've even had a candidate smugly ask, well, why don't you tell me about your company? Either way you look at it, the interviewer is kind of expecting you to have prepared an answer that shows that you've done some research and have found out a few things, but then expects a concise answer. The next question typically from me would be, what do you know about this role? Again, I'm expecting that the candidate has studied the role profile and understands the role that they are applying for and can answer the questions in a concise and knowledgeable way. It's working for your expanding marketing department as marketing assistant, helping to support the associate director with all of the internal communications across the group. I think there's also a responsibility for supporting the external relations, organisation of the annual awards night, and assisting the marketing managers with event management for their business functions. This is a nice sort of answer. There's detail and understanding in the role, and it's not too long and it's straight to the point. Study the role profile or the job advert. Pick out the key points from it that describe the role well and practice building this into a short statement. My next question might be, how do you see your skills and experience fitting this role? I might typically ask this because I want to see if the candidate has an awareness of what skills and experience they have to offer that fit the role in particular. This helps to understand just how well they understand what the role is, but it also allows them to focus on the relevant skills and experience rather than getting them just to talk about their whole career history to date. Lots of interviewers might ask this question though, can you tell me about your career history? They might do this to get the candidate to talk about their career to date and the roles that they've had so that they can pull out all of the relevant information to understand if the candidate has the experience required. Now, I find if I do this, candidates can go off on a tangent and it's not focused enough for me. I'd rather get them to answer a focused question about their experience that fits that particular role. Tell me about you might be another question. This question is sometimes seen as a bit of an icebreaker and it can be asked early on in the interview. It can be the interviewer's way of getting the candidate settled in and can help calm the nerves by getting someone to talk about themselves. I found that this question can cause more issues and confusion than some other questions for a number of reasons. The candidate isn't sure what sort of information the interviewer is looking for. It can be seen as a trick question. The interviewer isn't always specific enough for the candidate on what information they want to hear, and can sometimes have to sit and listen to the candidate while they provide lots of irrelevant information as an answer. Hi, well, I'm a Capricorn, I like jazz music, I live with 3 huskies and my sister, I spent last summer in Scotland with my friends and we went camping, I like to cycle long distances and I also run marathons and bake cakes. Well, that's great, but it's not really what I was looking for. Make the answer relevant to the role and the company. It's what I'd want to hear. I've spent the last 5 years in marketing. I love the creative elements of that because I get to use my graphic design skills. And I found that I get a lot of enjoyment from working with people who are happy with sharing their knowledge and ideas so that I can learn and build on my skills. I find that I'm happier when I'm continually learning new skills for marketing. Some interviewers do genuinely want you to talk about yourself, your family, what you like to do in your spare time, but this can be tricky to answer, and interviewers should really steer clear of asking for too much personal information. Stick to some brief facts about you. I live in East London. I moved here 4 years ago with my family. I enjoy challenges to get my teeth into. I always like to think that I'm learning something new and find that I like to ask questions to really understand something that I'm working on. Why did you leave your last job? Now, it's difficult to know how this question might be worded. Why did you leave your last job? Why do you want to leave your current job? Why are you looking for a new role? Whatever your reason, you should ensure that your answer does not put your current or your last employer in a bad light. So do focus on the positive. Well, I wasn't really looking to leave, but I stumbled upon this role and it ticked all of the boxes for me in terms of new challenges. I've heard that this company can provide a really good environment for me to continue to craft my skills and learn more. Or you could say, I've got to the stage in my current role where I'm unable to advance any further due to the current department structure. I've been studying public relations and I found that this is a real area of interest for me, but my current role can't offer any work in that area for me. The role here with you would really help me use my new skills and develop them further. Now, sometimes you might be asked, what makes you the best candidate for the role? Or why should we choose you? Now, this is a tricky question to answer. You don't know who the other candidates are, and therefore, how do you know whether you're a better fit than they are? But be humble in your approach and your answer, but put in some strong points. Well, it's difficult to know, but I hope that it's my desire to work well with others and my passion for marketing that sets me apart. Also, I hope that the variety of skills that I've developed in communication, public relations and creative copywriting are seen as having many strings to my bow. Other than that, I think the passion that I have for completing projects to the highest level and quality, and my understanding of the time restraints from working in a fast-paced environment similar to yours would be of interest to you. Again, that's a really strong answer. Certainly don't try to be cocky and certainly don't put other candidates down negatively. Yes, I have seen people do this in interview. 2 further questions that candidates always seem to be fearful of are, what are your greatest strengths and what are your biggest weaknesses? Now, the second question in particular is scary for most people, and I've had candidates in interview, when I've asked them that question, turn around and say, I knew you were going to ask me that question, which is great because the next thing in my mind is thinking, well, if you knew that I was going to ask you that question, your answer is going to be a bloody good one because you've had time to prepare for it. Now, these are going to take a little while longer to explain, so check out the videos focused specifically on those 2 questions that I've produced. Can you tell me about your career background or talk to me about your CV? Again, a question that can bring up long-winded and generic answers. Some candidates don't know where to start and others don't know where to finish because it's difficult to know exactly what information the interviewer wants to hear. As with everything I've talked about so far, keep it detailed but concise. I started life as an apprentice with ABC Limited and was soon given the opportunity to work on their marketing projects where I found my real passion. I relocated here and progressed into a marketing assistant role with XYZ. I was unfortunately made redundant a couple of years ago, but that didn't kill my passion for marketing, and I took on personal study in marketing and project management. My next role with Smith & Smithson Limited was great fun as I took on even more marketing responsibility, and this time while I was managing a team. It was my first time that I'd managed a team, but I learned from my mistakes and made sure that I had a great mentor to teach me all of the line management skills I needed. This has really given me the confidence in how to manage and motivate a team of creative people. Which leads me to today. I'm here because I've built some real experiences and skills in marketing, project management and people management, and I think I can bring a lot to your team. Again, that's a really good answer. It's concise. What motivates you at work? This again can be a real curveball question, and it can throw people. What does motivate you at work? And when you really think about it, and don't say, well, when it's time to go home. Think about the elements that you really enjoy. Is it about working with others? Is it about leading a team? Perhaps being managed by someone that you feel you can learn from? Working in an environment where you are recognised for your contribution? Perhaps it's because you feel somewhere where you are trusted and appreciated. There are so many answers that you can give. For me, it's where I feel that I can be creative and ask lots of questions and look up to my boss as someone that I can learn from and aspire to be. How do you like to be managed is another typical question that I'll ask. For me, it's always a good question to ask because it gives me an insight into how that person wants to be managed by me as their manager. Some people like to be left alone to their own devices to produce their work. Others like to be managed all of the time with constant communication between them and their manager. Others like weekly catch-ups with the boss, others not frequently at all. Think about how you might answer this. Why do you want to work for us? It can really help to think about what appeals to you about the company and the role. If you've done your research on the role and the company already, this should be pretty straightforward for you to think about and answer. Whatever it is, be specific. I tend to find that I have to ask candidates further questions if they give me a vague answer. Well, I think it's because you're a great company to work for. Thanks very much. What specifically is it about the company that makes you want to work here? Or, I think the role will be really challenging for me. That's great, but what specifically about the role do you think is going to be challenging for you? There needs to be a reason in your answer. What are your salary expectations? Again, another typical question to answer. And for this, I've added a separate video so that you can check that out in the link below. It's a really tricky question and something that makes some candidates feel really uncomfortable in answering. Do you have any questions for me or us? It might be that you can't think of any questions. It might be that they answered all of the questions for you as part of the interview that you've just gone through. But it's expected that you should ask some questions. It's courtesy. Ask 2 or 3 questions at most and be aware that this typically comes at the end of the interview, so they may be running out of time. So don't ask questions where there needs to be a really long-winded answer, but do ask questions. I like it when candidates ask questions that A, show that they found something out about the company that is different to everybody else, or B, want to know about the environment, or C, want to know something more about the role. For example, well, I saw that Company X was voted Best Newcomer at the National Business Awards last year. What was it that made Company X stand out from the crowd? Oh, that's a good question. They seem interested in Company X. What do you see as the biggest challenges for Company X over the coming years? Again, a really good question. I know that the CEO is keen on his staff having a work-life balance. How does that work in the everyday environment here? If I was successful, what would you expect from me over the first 3 months? Could you describe the dynamics of the current team? What is it about Company X that keeps you working here? Well, I hope this video has given you some ideas on the sort of questions that you're going to be asked as part of the interview process. Again, no one's a mind reader. There could be many, many more questions they ask, but those are the typical ones that you'll find. Whatever questions that you think you might be asked, practice your answers, not just once, but several times so that they sit comfortably and stick in your mind. And as always, please subscribe and click the notifications icon, ask questions or leave comments. Thanks for watching.